Welcome back to the No Zone, your spot to stay in the know about everything football. Week 2 was undoubtedly one of the craziest weeks, and we're just going to get straight into the video because we have so much to talk about here. So starting off big here, let's look at the Lions and the Buccaneers game, where we saw the Bucs win 20-16. So just looking at the generals, right, we see Jared Goff throwing 2 interceptions this game, and I think that that's a key reason why they lost. I think that Jared Goff is going to need to take better care of the ball if they want to win some games going forward. You look at Baker Mayfield, 185 passing yards with 2 touchdowns. Pretty solid game from him all around. We saw his favorite target, Chris Godwin, with 117 yards. I believe Mike Evans only had like 40-something yards, but right now Chris Godwin is actually the wide receiver 1 in fantasy football, so definitely just someone to keep an eye on. And going forward, I really do wonder how they're going to end up splitting this receiving core. Let's look at Amon-Ra St. Brown, someone who last week actually did not perform that well. This week, I thought he did amazing, 119 yards. You saw Jared Goff target him a lot, which was, very good. He did get a little bit banged up a couple times there, but I think that he's going to be okay overall. Lastly, I really want to look at this Rachaad White and Bucky Irving backfield split. I think as the season goes on, we're going to see more and more of Bucky Irving just because of how efficient he is. Rachaad White, I believe he had 18 carries for 10 yards. That's less than 2 yards per carry, which is super inefficient. And, you can't have that if you want to be an RB1 in the NFL. You have to be way more efficient. Bucky Irving has the ability to do that, and I think that going forward, the Buccaneers are going to start having Bucky Irving get more and more of the snaps. Next up, let's look at the Jets and the Titans game. So this game was a little bit telling in my opinion. I still think that there's a lot more we need to learn about the Jets. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers looks pretty solid. I believe he only had like 180 passing yards. I don't have written it down, but I do think that we still haven't seen the full sample size of Aaron Rodgers yet on the Jets. I think that he's going to start targeting Garrett Wilson a lot more, and we're going to see a lot more yardage go his way. I just think that the Jets, they haven't really been passing the ball too much. And on top of that, we're seeing their run game really going here with Breece Hall and their rookie running back, Braylon Allen. I believe that's his name. These guys are getting it going, so I think Aaron Rodgers right now is kind of just, handing the ball off to the hot hand, which is definitely what the Jets need to do to win. Looking back at Will Levis, though, we're really looking at if he can be the QB for the Titans going forward. And, Will Levis, I do think that he's got all the arm talent that you want out of a quarterback. He's got the weapons you need. He had that one really, really good throw to Calvin Ridley on the sideline for a touchdown, but the main question for him is he can be, the franchise quarterback for the Titans, and I think that this is going to be a recurring theme over the season. And, I think that as the time goes on, we're going to be able to see this answer more deliberately than we do now, Next up, let's look at the Chargers versus the Panthers. There's 2 main things I really want to look at here. Number 1, Joe Alt is continuing to dominate. The number 5 pick overall, I believe, to the Chargers. He was probably the best pick for the Chargers to take here. I mean, you could have argued that they could have picked a receiver with Rome Odunze, but Joe Alt is allowing little to no pressures, and he's just dominating straight up. But yeah, that's it for the Chargers, really. Looking at the Panthers, though, obviously they lost this game 26-3, and Bryce Young is now being benched for Andy Dalton. And, you're looking at what the Panthers' plan is for Bryce Young. I really don't know. They could end up not even playing him again, which I think is very unlikely. I think that, they're going to end up playing him again. I think that it was really bad for him to start off as a QB1 his rookie year. I think that he is a player who needs time to develop. So if they bench him for the rest of this year, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. I do think that he needs some time to learn under another veteran quarterback, and I think that Andy Dalton might be a solid choice for them here, which is possibly why they're doing this maneuver. Next up, let's look at one of the biggest upsets of the week, in my opinion, with the Raiders versus the Ravens, where we did see the Raiders win the game 26-23, and Minshew mania, baby. He is on fire. Minshew had 276 passing yards, a touchdown, and interception. We really saw him targeting his 2 main receivers, Devontae Adams and Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is looking like a really good rookie tight end. He's looking like he might have a better season than Sam Laporta last year, which I thought was near impossible, really. And you look at Devontae Adams, he had this potential all along. We knew this. He just had, poor quarterback play. Last year, you had Jimmy G going into Aiden O'Connell, and then, it's just, I think Minshew Mania is a lot better than both of those quarterbacks, obviously, and just, looking at the stats, I'm really happy to see Devontae Adams kind of step into his own now. So going to the Ravens here, Lamar Jackson is the first 0-2 player to win MVP this season before since Kurt Warner in 2002. This is definitely something of concern, especially when you look at their schedule the next 3 games. They're playing the Cowboys, the Bengals, and the Bills. All 3 of those teams are contenders this year, in my opinion. I think the Bengals are going to get it going. And, it might be a little bit tough for the Ravens to recover. Will they do it? I think that they will. I hope that they do because they're a very good team, and I want to see them in the playoffs. But I think that this is definitely something of concern, and if the Ravens can't win 2 out of this next 3 games, they're going to be in big trouble. Next, let's look at a game here that wasn't very eventful, but, you know, there are some talking points I want to say with the Steelers versus the Broncos. So, looking at Justin Fields, he's going to continue to run the ball a lot, and we saw that a lot this game. He only had 117 passing yards. I do think that, you know, once Russell Wilson is healthy, it's going to be a battle to see who gets that QB1 spot. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what they do in Pittsburgh. And, you know, I think Bo Nix looked all right. He did have 2 interceptions, but he had 246 passing yards. So definitely an improvement in passing yardage from last week. But the 2 interceptions, you know, obviously he's a rookie, so that's going to come and it's going to go with time as well. But I think that this is something that he's going to need to improve throughout his career, and I just think that he's going to need time to develop. Next up, let's look at a nail-biter with the Seahawks versus the Patriots. So the Seahawks came away with this game 23-20. Geno Smith looked pretty solid. You know, their quarterback had 327 passing yards and a touchdown. Zach Charbonnet, someone else I want to talk about, he basically took over this whole role for the backfield because Kevin Walker was out. He played all right. He wasn't very efficient, I believe. He only averaged like 2.8 yards per carry, but he did have a pretty solid receiving role, which is something to look out if you have him in fantasy football. Looking at Jackson Smith and Jigma and DK Metcalf, we see a combination of 246 yards for them, like just those 2 players. And, you know, Geno obviously had 327 passing yards. DK had 129 of these yards, with JSN having 117. And really, I just want to focus on JSN. JSN's snap count percentage right now is going up. We're seeing him getting more snaps, and I think he's going to get more targets as the season progresses. I think that we're going to see Tyler Lockett's role diminish, kind of like how we saw on Sunday a little bit. You know, looking at the Seahawks side of things, Jacoby Brissett's looking okay. I understand why they're not playing Drake May, because like I said with Bryce Young, it's better to learn under a veteran. But I do wonder if they're ever going to have Drake May come out and start. It'll be interesting to see that. We saw Gibson and Ramondre split the backfield again. Ramondre had 65% of the snaps, give or take. And I think that, you know, that's going to be something to monitor going forward. And someone else I want to look at with a big game, Hunter Henry, 109 yards, 8 receptions. That is around 65% of Jacoby Brissett's passing yards. That's absolutely insane. Overall, I do think that the Seahawks are, you know, they're okay team, but I think that if they want to be a team that makes the playoffs, they're going to be needing to beat these teams like the Patriots by a lot more points. Speaking of beating teams by a lot more points, let's look at the Cowboys versus the Saints, where we saw the Saints win 44-19. So looking at the Saints, I mean, Alvin Kamara had a hat trick in the first half. Derek Carr went absolutely ballistic in the first half as well. And, you know, the Cowboys really just couldn't get anything going offensively. You know, it was tough for them, in my opinion, because the Saints were literally scoring on every single drive. So even if they wanted to get something going, it would have been hard for them to kind of rebuttal what the Saints were doing. You know, and their defense really just couldn't get stops. This has been the thing for the Saints offense. I mean, they scored, I believe, the first 15 of their drives in a row with Derek Carr at quarterback. If you would have told me that coming into the year, I would have called you bogus. But I mean, the Saints are actually looking like a pretty solid team overall. Their defense actually looks really good. And, you know, I do think that if Derek Carr can keep up this consistent play, they're going to be a team to look out for in the NFC. Next up, let's look at the Texans versus the Bears, which was a 19-13 Texans victory. So, you know, I do think that CJ Stroud definitely has a lot more potential. He looked all right in this game, but I think he's still getting back in the groove. You know, we saw him throw a couple of very close interceptions in this game that were either called back because of a flag, I believe, or they were just, you know, hit the ground first. But he's definitely throwing some sketchy balls, in my opinion. But we do see Nico Collins, the wide receiver one, easily. You know, I think that as CJ Stroud gets more and more comfortable in this offense as the season goes on, we're going to see Diggs getting more targets. I'm a little bit skeptical of Tank Dell just because he's getting less snaps than Stephon Diggs and Nico Collins. I think that's something to monitor as well. But, you know, I do think that overall, you know, you got Joe Mixon. I saw that he's not hurt, so he's going to be fine. I do think that Joe Mixon's probably going to get less of a backfield just because of this injury lingering. You know, I think that we might see either Cam Akers or Dameon Pierce, depending on if Dameon Pierce is healthy, splitting this role a little bit more. And, I mean, going over to the Bears side of things, straight up, Caleb Williams just did not look good in this one. And it's either because the Texans defense was really good or if the Bears just suck in general and Caleb Williams just isn't good. And I mean, you look at the pressure for the Texans, actually. They pressured Caleb Williams, I believe, 36 out of 37 snaps, something like that. that is completely insane. That defensive line is definitely going to be something to monitor going forward. And, you know, I do think that the Bears defense was also really good against the Texans. They had some really good plays going for them. And, you know, something I thought was really funny was whenever Caleb Williams was about to get sacked by Danielle Hunter, and then he kind of like escaped, got his jersey ripped, and then threw an interception to, I believe it was Kamari Laziter, I think. I mean, overall, this was a pretty good game for the Texans to win. Definitely wasn't beautiful. It was a little ugly, but a win is a win overall. Next up, let's look at another shocker where the Colts actually lost to the Packers 16-10. And man, this whole week honestly was full of shockers now that I'm looking back at these games. We're looking at Anthony Richardson, 3 interceptions, 1 touchdown, 17 for 34 on completions. This is something that I was saying last week and this week. His completion percentage right now is horrible. 50% this week. Last week he had below 50%. He's throwing 3 interceptions. He only has 1 touchdown. He has, I think, around 200 something yards passing and a lot of rushing yards once again. But the thing with Anthony Richardson is just like he doesn't look very good right now because, you know, some of the reads he's making are just not right at all. And his accuracy is not, you know, as good as they need to be if he wants to be, you know, a very good quarterback in this league. I think that he's going to get better as time goes on. Obviously, you know, players do improve as time goes on. So I think that he's going to be fine. But, I mean, you look at Josh Jacobs, too. This guy absolutely dominated. 151 rushing yards. The Colts' rushing defense this game was absolutely horrendous. They could not stop Josh Jacobs. Jacobs literally, I think, had more rushing yards than Malik Willis did passing yards. Let that sit in your mind for a little bit. That's, like, rarely ever happens, really. And, you know, we did see that Jordan Love actually was at practice today, so he might be coming back soon. And I do think that Malik Willis is a solid backup, though. He's kind of like a game manager quarterback. He'll take care of the ball. He's not going to do anything crazy, but overall, I do think that this win was shocking for the Packers, and I do think that the Colts, like, their projections for me, at least, they're going to go down a lot after this game. And wow, look at that. Another shocker coming up here with the 49ers versus the Vikings, where the Vikings win 23-17. Brock Purdy had 319 passing yards. Debo and Kittle dominated this game, and Jordan Mason had 100 rushing yards. That's just, you know, kind of like the bear of this game. Now let's dig deeper, right? Let's look at Debo Samuel. Debo Samuel is now injured. So what does this mean going forward? I think that it means that George Kittle is going to dominate. You know, I think that Ayuk's also going to get a lot more targets too, but I think that this offense is majority going to go through George Kittle. I think that Kittle is more in those scenarios that Debo Samuel is in. I do think that Ayuk's going to get a couple more deep balls as the season progresses, obviously, with him missing training camp, like I said last week. But, you know, I think that this injury is big, you know, and if no one can step up like Jordan Mason is for CMC, it's going to be hard for the 49ers to try to replicate what they've been doing and try to win football games, you know. Next up, let's look at the Vikings here. Sam Darnold is looking good. I mean, he 97-yard touchdown to Justin Jefferson is insane. I'm so happy Justin Jefferson had his big game. You know, 133 yards, 1 touchdown, definitely a game for him to remember. And I believe it was only on like 4 receptions too. And, you know, I do wonder with the Vikings what they're thinking about Sam Darnold. You know, I doubt that after this year Sam Darnold stays. I think J.J. McCarthy's going to be that quarterback for them going forward. And, you know, I do think that Sam Darnold's going to get a bag somewhere else. But if Sam Darnold can continue this play consistently, I think that the Vikings have a very good chance to make the playoffs, and not only make the playoffs, but get pretty deep in there as well, because Sam Darnold has been proving that he's a solid player. You know, the 49ers defense is not a lullaby defense like the Panthers. You know, they're going to challenge you, right? You got Fred Warner, who's going to try to lurk you over the middle, obviously. They got Nick Bosa, someone that's going to try to pressure you off the edge. Javon Hargrave, he's very good as well to pressure you. Tre'Davious Ward, he's a really good cornerback. You know, there's just so many guys here on the San Francisco 49ers defense that are very good players, and we're seeing someone like Sam Darnold, I wouldn't say dominate, but do very well against this defense. So I think that this is something for everyone to just kind of monitor Sam Darnold's play going forward. Looking at the Giants-Commanders game, we did see the Commanders win 21-18, and, you know, Danny Dimes looked all right. He had 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, but really, someone that carried their offense, Malik Neighbors, 127 yards, 1 touchdown. I think going forward that these stats are going to go up even higher. Well, maybe not like 127 yards in a game, but I think that he's going to continue this production at a solid level. I think like 60 to 80 yards per game is probably going to be his average. Looking at the Commanders, Jaden Daniels is going to continue to rush. We knew this coming into the year. We know this, you know, just as him as a quarterback. He's a rushing quarterback, right? But I do think that his potential to throw balls deep is going to go up because of his play at LSU. Obviously, we saw him throwing the ball up to Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. a lot. And I do think that Terry McLaurin's going to end up getting more targets in those scenarios. So definitely someone to buy low, in my opinion. Looking at Brian Robinson Jr., 133 yards, still split in the backfield a little bit with Austin Eckler, but he did go off this game. Another close one, the Browns took this game over the Jags, 18-13. Deshaun Watson, we saw this last week, we saw it this week, he's just not looking good. I mean, he cannot get back to that level that he was once at with the Texans. And it's, you know, it's frustrating, but at the same time, it's kind of like, it's just a mental thing. It has to be. Like I said on my stream this Saturday, I just think that talent doesn't go away. You know, I think that this is just a mental thing that he's got to get through. And how does he get through it? I'm not sure, you know. I think that he's going to start having to target Amari Cooper, his number one receiver, a lot more. We saw this with Joe Flacco. You know, he would target Amari Cooper, and that's why he was so successful, because he could end up spreading it out to more people. Obviously, once Nick Chubb comes back, this offense is going to look a lot different. But I do think for now that Deshaun Watson's going to need to alleviate his targets more towards Amari Cooper. Looking at the Jags, we did see Travis Etienne get a majority of this backfield, something that was a little bit concerning last week with Tank Bigsby. And, you know, Trevor Lawrence did look all right. No passing touchdowns, but no turnovers. I think that, you know, for him to win games, he's going to need to do more, obviously, as he lost this game to a team with a horrible quarterback. But I think that going forward, if T-Law can get his stats up, I think that, you know, they're going to be a team that can possibly make the playoffs. I don't know. It's going to be hard for them right now. It's starting off at 0-2. Next up, let's look at the Cardinals and Rams game, which was another shocker where the Cardinals won 41-10. This is just the week of shockers, like I said before. Anyway, let's look at the game, right? Marvin Harrison Jr., first quarter, 130 yards, 4 touchdowns, I think 3 or 4 receptions, but after that, he got nothing. Kind of crazy. But Kyler Murray looked amazing in this game. He absolutely dominated in fantasy football. He's on one of my teams, so I was very happy. James Conner looked really good, 122 rush yards. Doesn't look like he's slowing down at all, which was something that was concerning due to his age. Looking at the Rams, you know, they're going to be kind of iffy with Cooper Kupp out. It's something that we're going to need to watch, obviously, with Stafford and Kyron Williams and how they're going to, you know, balance this throw game to run game. It's going to be something that I'm definitely going to be watching in their next game. And Nakua and Cooper Kupp being out, that's really detrimental to this team because of how much they rely on their passing game. So they're going to need some more receivers to step up. Like DeMarcus Robinson, I think that he's going to be a pretty solid player. Maybe Tutu Atwell. I guess we'll see going forward, but, you know, definitely something to monitor. Next up, let's look at another super close game with the Bengals and the Chiefs, where we did see the Chiefs win 26-25 on a game-winning Harrison Butker field goal. So, I mean, looking at it from, you know, before Pacheco's leg injury where he broke his fibula, Mahomes did not have his best outing. 151 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Definitely not the type of Mahomes we're accustomed to seeing. Rashee Rice did get a majority of the targets with 6. And, you know, Travis Kelce, only 1 reception for 5 yards. Something that, you know, I think is going to hopefully increase, but I'm not too sure. As we saw with the Chiefs, though, obviously, like I said before, Pacheco is out now with a broken leg. If he comes back, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks, I think is what they said. So it's definitely going to be something to monitor. Very sad for me because I have him in one fantasy league. So a little bit sad, but looking at the Bengals here, right? Joe Burrow, 258 yards, 2 touchdowns. Actually, a pretty solid game overall from him. We did see Zach Moss and Chase Brown. They kind of got the same amount of yards, except Chase Brown only got 4 rushes. Zach Moss got 12. Something to monitor going forward. I do think that Chase Brown still has the potential to get more carries compared to Zach Moss just because he's way more efficient. But, I mean, overall, you know, you had Mike Gesicki getting the majority of receptions and targets in this offense. 7 receptions, 91 yards, 9 targets. But I really want to talk about Jamar Chase here, right? Jamar Chase, 4 receptions, 35 yards. We saw him getting pretty mad on the sidelines. It's something to monitor for sure. And I think that once T. Higgins come back, this is definitely going to be a situation to where either T. Higgins is going to help him get more room to operate because he's another threat, or T. Higgins is just going to take all those targets away from Jamar Chase that he's currently getting, which would kind of be crazy. But, I mean, I guess we're going to have to see going into whenever T. Higgins comes back, hopefully next week. All right, and for our last game of the week here, we had the Falcons versus the Eagles, where we did see the Falcons win 22-21. On probably the craziest drive by Kirk Cousins I've ever seen. I mean, I was watching this game live. I was about to go to sleep because I was so tired. But looking at it, you know, the Eagles actually had, I'm on ESPN, they had a 95% chance to win with a minute and 20 left. 96.6% chance with a minute 40 left. And, you know, just, it's kind of crazy that the Eagles end up choking this game because, you know, you had Saquon, obviously, could have sealed the game with that catch. and he drops it. Definitely something that is pretty sad to see if you're an Eagles fan. Hurts had 183 yards only with a touchdown, threw an interception at the end of the game, and it was basically already over. It would have been really hard for them to come back. But looking at the Falcons, I mean, Kirk Cousins absolutely dominates in the fourth quarter. He had 170 passing yards coming into that last drive, ends with 241, 2 touchdowns. Bijan Robinson goes absolutely ballistic as well. We really saw a rushing game here with Bijan Robinson and Saquon, both having a 95 yards at least on the ground. We also saw, Drake London getting some more receptions and targets. Now, he did get his touchdown at the end of the game when they were rushing the ball, so it's definitely going to be something to monitor in my opinion, because I don't think that that's something that's going to be sustainable for fantasy football at least. Devontae Smith, 7 receptions, 76 yards, 1 touchdown. Definitely going to continue to get a bigger role as A.J. Brown is out and possibly for a while here. But I mean, yeah, just overall, absolutely unbelievable this game. I did not think that the Falcons were going to come back. And, overall, I'm just curious to see what the Eagles do going forward, because now, obviously they're 1-1 right now, so definitely something for them to monitor as they go against the Saints. And the Saints right now are actually favored by 3 points, so I guess we're going to see how that goes if Derek Carr goes off again. And for the Falcons, though, I think that, they're actually going to be a very good team. I think that they're going to finally hit their stride. And I do think that they're going to hit that potential that a lot of analysts said that they were going to hit before coming into this year. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching week 3, I believe, of the No Zone. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys like, subscribe if you guys like these type of videos. And, yep, I will be streaming this Saturday, I believe, just going over some of the preview of the games as well as tomorrow's game on Thursday night. Just breaking that down. So, yeah, I really appreciate you guys for checking out this video. And, yeah, I'll just see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace.